All right, what's up, A to Z Sports? This is the Titan Draft Show Live. Sam Phelan here for the A to Z Sports Titan Draft Show Live, presented by Prince's Hot Chicken and Holiday World and Splash and Safari. I am joined this fine draft evening by our guy Jack Gentry and Lucas Panzica of 104.5 The Zone for what should be a very exciting draft and a very interesting next couple of hours as we await the Tennessee Titans selection at 7th overall. We await the picks now that will then give us a draft board for who the Titans are picking from. It's about to get interesting. The Commanders have taken Jaden Daniels. Caleb Williams has gone to the Bears. So now is when it heats up. And before I let these two guys loose, who I know are very excited, I'm excited to tell all of you about who is powering this evening. It is Prince's Hot Chicken. Prince's Hot Chicken is Nashville's original hot chicken, bursting with heat and flavor. There is nothing better than the original. They've got 3 locations: South Nashville, 5th and Broadway, the Tanger outlets, plus 1 in B&A in that airport. Go check out Prince's Hot Chicken and Holiday World. Woof. And Splash and Safari, family fun, just a couple hours away from us in Nashville. Top ranking roller coasters, brand new rides, and the nation's first launched water coaster. Get the summer started with the best savings online at holidayworld.com, where there is always free parking, free soft drinks, free sunscreen. Boys, what's up? I know you guys are both pumped. Let's get into this draft.
Sam, I've been antsy all day. I've had ants in my pants for the last 12 hours. I haven't really controlled my excitement. We're going to have to figure that out here in the next couple hours.
I could tell you were excited. I'm just talking to you on the phone this morning. You're giddy, like ready to go.
Yeah, 7 o'clock. 7 o'clock, I was screaming. Yeah, man, it's going to be a fun night.
This draft, for whatever reason, the buildup to this draft has been so much more fascinating than in recent years. And maybe we say that every year. Maybe that's recency bias, but we're not talking about Trayvon Walker and Aiden Hutchinson going 1 and 2 here. We're talking about potential for draft history with quarterbacks in the first 4 picks. Also, I was wondering what Eminem was up to. I don't know if you guys were. Great to see him before Roger Goodell called out the first pick.
And drops like a weird diss track like once every 2 years, and that's Eminem's kind of career here. No, Lucas, I think you're dead on. 4 quarterbacks here at the top of the draft, 3 electric wide receivers, possibly 10 offensive players off the board with the first 10 picks. We'll see how it shakes out. It feels like a more exciting draft than usual. And the fact that the Titans are in the spot at 7th overall, where we don't know what's available, the trade down's a possibility. Nobody knows which offensive tackle is at the top of their board or which wide receiver they like the most. And who knows if they'll even have the opportunity to get him. It makes for a lot of really interesting conversation. Now, I've been pretty clear on A to Z Sports over the last few weeks. My win would be the Titans taking Malik Neighbors tonight, finding a way to come away with the LSU star wide receiver. That is my ideal world. I've heard some thoughts from Jack, and Jack, I'll let you go after Lucas, but I don't know Lucas's opinion on the draft class. So, Lucas, the Titans win tonight, if what?
The Titans win tonight, to me, if they shore up the left side of the offensive line in one fell swoop. That, to me, has been the hope the whole way. That, to me, has been my expectation, what I want to happen. But that does not mean that I can't get excited about a Malik Neighbors pick. I think if you're a Titans fan, no matter how bad you want Joe Alt to be the pick at 7, you're crazy for not getting excited for a Malik Neighbors pick. And it's hard for me to envision the Titans going first round, second round, without a playmaker, with Brian Callahan informing Rand Carthon throughout this process. So I will not be surprised whatsoever, especially if it falls in a way that pushes that playmaking talent down to 7, if the Titans do end up with Malik Neighbors or Roma Dunze or whoever this staff likes, whoever they've rated highly throughout this process. But my final answer on my favorite pick, my win for the Titans, is without a doubt Joe Alt, the best left tackle of this draft, the best offensive lineman in this draft, with the number 7 pick.
Look, I don't think there's one path to victory here for the Tennessee Titans. My answer is that the Titans will win tonight if both Joe Alt and Malik Neighbors are on the board by the time the Titans pick at 7. Okay, I understand there's some trade back fanatics, and getting a pick in day 2 sounds pretty good, especially considering you only have 1 right now. But if both of those players are on the board, you've already won. You've won before the pick has been submitted. Both of those guys are cornerstone pieces that you're going to be able to add to your offense, and they're going to be Will Levis's best friend. So if either one of those guys falls to the Titans at 7, the Titans have won.
Well, the big thing that is determining that is the quarterback situation. That 4th quarterback feels like the cog in the wheel that needs to go for the Titans to be in that spot. And somebody ideally trading up for JJ McCarthy or Drake May or whoever that fourth quarterback is. Maybe it's the Giants at 6. I think this New England pick, which we are going to get very soon here, and I actually have. So for the first time, gentlemen, brace yourselves. We've got a pick to announce. With the third pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, the New England Patriots select Drake May, quarterback, UNC. So kind of a lot of buzz about whether the Pats were going to trade down, whether they were going to take JJ McCarthy. They do not. It is Drake May. I guess number one question I have for the two of you, is this the right pick for New England? And number two, how does this impact the Titans now that JJ McCarthy is QB4?
Yeah, I'll lead off here. And, I'm not so sure that the Patriots roster is ready for a quarterback. You got to find one eventually, and it's nice to get one in the top 3 picks. But, I'm surprised they didn't trade back here a little bit. I think that they have more holes than just the quarterback spot. And if they trade back, kind of acquired some more darts to throw in the first couple of days in this draft, I think that would have been a winning strategy as Gerard Mayo enters his first season as a head coach up in New England. So I'm a little surprised they didn't trade back. But look, you got to be happy if you're a Patriots fan. You get to turn the page. You've immediately got somebody you're excited about in Drake May, who made plays at the college level, comes from a family who's used to winning big in athletics. Brother Luke May was a big Tar Heel hero
that
in the
big
NCAA
March
tournament.
Madness shot. I remember that.
Exactly. So Drake May, he's somebody to get excited about for New England, but I am surprised they didn't trade back. I thought that was what they were going to do.
I think it's the right pick because you don't know when you're going to be in this spot again. Now, Drake May is arguably getting into the worst situation of any rookie quarterback, right? Caleb Williams is in an unusually good situation for a number 1 pick. And Washington, obviously, there are needs there. They've got some veteran pieces, same deal, new coaching staff, new top to bottom, ownership, GM, everything. But in New England, I think when you're in this spot at 3, let's say, for example, guys, Gerard Mayo, coach of the year, the New England Patriots win 7, 8, 9 games more than anybody expects, and they've got kind of a middling outside of the top 10 pick next year, then you don't know when you're going to be in this spot is my point. So there's going to be a sense of urgency to build around Drake May with this roster because it is bare bones. There is nothing there in New England. So they've got to move quickly, but I get why Bob Kraft is sick of watching Mac Jones. He's sick of watching bad quarterback play after all those years of dominance with Tom Brady and just wants to go and get his guy. So if I'm a Patriots fan, I'm pretty excited about this pick.
And it makes sense. You brought up Robert Kraft. The sand in the hourglass is running out on Robert Kraft's time as an owner over there. So he wants to get this franchise back on track. He wants to see another Super Bowl come to town. The quickest way to do that is find a quarterback. I think that Robert Kraft is pretty happy with this decision.
Yeah, I like Drake May, probably more than Jaden Daniels too. Like I think he could be the QB2 of this draft very easily. It wasn't that long ago that people were thinking it was a slam dunk Williams May 1-2. So to get him at 3 is really nice. The question now, does one of those teams in the 11 to 13 range, and I always get the draft order mixed up, bro, which one's which? You got Oakland, you got Minnesota, you got Denver, 3 teams that are potentially interested in moving up for a quarterback. JJ McCarthy is the guy. Gut reaction from me, I would be surprised if somebody came up to get McCarthy here. I don't see the Cardinals trading out of this spot, and for some reason, I feel like the Chargers might pick here too.
Yeah, I'll say, the only spot I could see the Cardinals moving to is that 6th spot with the Giants. If the Giants wanted to jump up and grab McCarthy before somebody jumped up and took him at 5, then I could see them making that move. I think the Cardinals really want a receiver here, whether it's MHJ or Malik Neighbors. So that's really the only circumstance I could see.
Why did the
Cardinals
Giants make that
signing
trade,
off on a
though?
trade?
What's the benefit of the Giants going from 6 to 4 and leapfrogging a Chargers team? I mean, is it just the bluff of somebody going to number 5?
That's exactly it. I mean, we've heard reports all week about the Chargers being open for business. I mean, they're open like 7-Eleven is a tweet that I saw today. So they're trying to move out of that 5 spot. And there's multiple teams in this draft that want to jump up there and have the capital to do so. Cough, cough, Minnesota Vikings. So if they're going to look for a quarterback, because Daniel Jones does have an out, the Giants have an out on Daniel Jones, I should say, after this season, then, there might not be another chance to get up and get JJ McCarthy. He may not fall to 6. So if they want to be proactive here, they could trade up to 4, but I still think Arizona's sticking pat and taking MHJ.
Yeah, I suppose they could just be wanting to beat one of those QB needy teams to the punch because pressure's going to be on. Raiders need a quarterback. Broncos need a quarterback. Vikings need a quarterback. One or two of those teams is going to get left in the dust with one of these higher up quarterback prospects in this first round. I don't know, guys. Monty Austinfort loves to wheel and deal. You just get that feeling that the videos of him on the phone, the guy just loves it. So I bet if the Cardinals do stick and pick here, it's going to be so hard for Monty not to just flip that pick and get everything he can for it. But the right move here is to take Marvin Harrison Jr. It's to take the guy that's been the best receiver throughout this process from start to finish and give Kyler Murray a number one target.
Well, Adam Schefter now reporting the Cardinals are not expected to trade the fourth pick. Eric wants me to quit announcing things before some of us get to see it. But guess what? If I don't do it, the chat's going to do it. So I'm going to keep doing it. And boys, the pick is in. We got a pick to announce. And with the fourth overall pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, the Arizona Cardinals select Marvin Harrison Jr., wide receiver, Ohio State. It is exactly the pick that made the most sense the whole time. There was a lot of buzz. Do the Cardinals move out? There are some teams that have Malik Neighbors as the wide receiver one, and I can hear that argument, but this is about as sure of a thing as you get as far as a wide receiver is concerned. So the Titans, reportedly by Diana Rossini, love Marvin Harrison Jr., felt like unlikely to go and get him. Nobody else able to trade up for him. He lands in Arizona, boys. And now this is where Titans fans hold your breath. That it gets spicy from here on out with the Chargers on the clock.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of gone as we've expected the first four picks, right? Everybody's sticking pat, making their picks, drafting the best guy for their team. And this is where it's always been rumored to get chaotic here. The Chargers at number 5, Jim Harbaugh's taken over. Who knows what he's looking for here? There's been a lot of smoke screens about offensive linemen here. JC Latham's gained a lot of traction over the last 48 hours with the Chargers. I really don't expect them to stay at 5, but who's going to move up? Who's going to move up and draft J.J. McCarthy? This is the spot I expect to see him go.
So you're thinking the Chargers straight out of here. That you're calling your shot there, Jack. That the Chargers do not pick at 5. Okay.
That's what I'm believing.
I mean, we might get it pretty soon here. I'm keeping the notifications on lock. If they're going to deal this pick, it could happen any second now.
Well, the Chargers are going to swoop in. Watch the Chargers swoop in here and just take Malik Neighbors. There's such a desperate need at wide receiver for the LA Chargers. Any normal head coach in the NFL would be taking a wide receiver here for a team that has a left tackle, that has a right tackle. LA could go offensive line. Nobody would be shocked. It's Jim Harbaugh. He's got Greg Roman in as the offensive coordinator, but we could get weird here. I don't mind getting weird here, and we'll see what happens.
What is weird here? What do we think the Chargers are going to do? Because Rashawn Slater is like, well, why would they take Joe Alt? They have Rashawn Slater. But Jim Harbaugh doesn't care. He's going to run the ball. Like, they don't have Keenan Allen. They don't have Mike Williams. I think it's more surprising if they go O-line, right? Like, receiver is the gimme pick, I feel.
Yeah, but
for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. But again, it's flipped in a way that I will be surprised if it's not offensive line, right? Like, I have expected at this point it to be an offensive line. If we want to talk real weird, we're talking about trading Justin Herbert somewhere and taking JJ McCarthy. That's where we get real weird. But no, I don't know, man. JC Latham, Joe Alt, whoever it might be. I expect tackle here for the LA Chargers, but maybe that's what the Chargers want me to expect because that's what the conversation's flipped into. Are they going to go into the season with Josh Palmer and Quentin Johnston as their wide receivers 1 and 2?
Well, Lucas, you said you wanted the Titans to shore up the left side of the offensive line. I assume then Joe Alt is your preference. I mean, JC Latham's experience at Alabama is at right tackle. Makes more sense for the Chargers than it does the Titans. I mean, there's a need there for the Titans. But going right tackle in the first round with a big old hole on the left side kind of would be puzzling to me. Is that kind of the consensus?
So you're saying if the Titans were to take JC Latham?
If JC Latham was the Titans tackle that they came away with, just if we're looking at the Chargers going O-line, and you're a Titans fan wanting left tackle solved, what should they be rooting to happen here?
Well, I don't think JC Latham to the Titans should automatically be slot him in at right tackle. If Bill Callahan sees JC Latham as a right tackle, I don't give a damn what every draft prospect that doesn't see him as one says. Jedrick Wills coming out of Alabama, that's the last time that a right tackle that never played left tackle came out of Bama, and he turned into a pretty good left tackle for Bill Callahan's offensive line. So you're deferring to Bill Callahan on these things. whatever the offensive line pick is, if that is indeed the pick for the Titans, you have to just assume that this entire administration is deferring to Bill Callahan. And I don't know how you could not be okay with that. You may be a little surprised. It may not be what you're expecting, but at the end of the day, if it's what Bill Callahan wants to do with this offensive line, you put your hands up and you say, all right, go to work, big man.
I think that's how we, sorry, Jack. I think that's how we kind of are as Titans fans right now, like media, whoever you are surrounding this team. This new regime is kind of at a fresh start, but also had a really exciting offseason, whether it's a coaching addition of the head coach or the offensive line coach, and then spending money on players like Calvin Ridley, who Titans fans maybe didn't think they'd get, and going and acquiring L'Jarius Sneed via a trade, where I think everybody sort of has this thought process right now of, hey, let Rand cook. Let Bill Callahan cook. If there's somebody, and you know, you and I, all three of us can agree with this, right? If Bill Callahan likes JC Latham, who am I to tell him he doesn't know what he's talking about at the end of the day?
That's the thing, right? Like, if the Titans end up going offensive lineman at 7, no matter who it is, I have full belief in, because Bill Callahan handpicked him. And Bill Callahan knows a whole lot more about offensive line play than any of these mock draft geniuses, okay? So what if the Titans do go offensive line, you have to feel like that's the best offensive lineman that the Titans could have possibly got, because Bill Callahan knows that offensive line like nobody else does. So, you know, if they take Latham, I'm not going to be upset. There may be people in the chat that are upset because he plays right tackle. We'll see what Callahan wants to do with him if that ends up being the pick. But who am I to get upset about if they want to go right tackle with Latham instead of left tackle with Alt, if that's who Bill Callahan believes is the better player?
But do we agree here? Best case scenario for the Titans is Chargers trading out of that 5th pick and a quarterback is taken here, right? JJ McCarthy.
Going with one of these next two is the best case scenario. And we don't have an update on the trade yet. Clock is still ticking on the Chargers. It's about to get good. And so this is a great time for me to tell everybody about our partners for the evening. And it is Holiday World. That is not Holiday World. That's the wrong one here. They are mislabeled on my backdrop here. Holiday World and Splash and Safari. Get the summer started with the best savings online at holidayworld.com. Good Gravy, a new family coaster. They've got a first like no other in the world for roller coasters themed after a Thanksgiving dinner. Interesting enough. Might have to check that out. It's opening to the public on May 11th, 2024, with riders on board will sit in a train shaped like a gravy boat. Yes, a train shaped like a gravy boat, which will be pulled backwards uphill before dropping forwards through the station on a cranberry-colored track. It reaches up to 37 miles an hour, will pass through a giant can of cranberry jelly with a 20-foot tall whisk and 18-foot tall rolling pin. This seems too absurd to believe, so you're just going to have to head to Holiday World to check it out. Great value. Like I said earlier, always free soft drinks, parking, and sunscreen. Great variety with over 40 rides and slides with something for everyone in the family, and award-winning roller coasters and water park. Holidays in the Sky drone show, now with 500 drones this summer. HolidayWorld.com. Boys, it's going to get good. I'm checking my updates right now. The Chargers are keeping the number 5 pick. No trade. They will select at number 5. So not the quarterback here. And we wait to see what Jim Harbaugh's cooking.
Man, you wonder if they were working the phones. We're getting late in the clock here, right? Pick's not in yet. Clock is still ticking. You just wonder if the Chargers were just fielding some stuff, seeing what they had. Minnesota, Denver, maybe Vegas trying to get in there. But this is going to be really interesting. Between offensive line and wide receiver, now that we know the Chargers are sticking, then where are we at? Where do Titans fans want the Chargers to go here? Is it JC Latham to shore up that right side?
I think is a great result for the Titans if that's the pick, because we just mentioned it, right? Like Bill Callahan, you trust him, but on the surface, that's a right tackle. Joe Alt to me is still the hands down offensive tackle 1. At least that's the initial feeling. If they go Latham here, you are guaranteed that situation Jack talked about, or Joe Alt and Malik Neighbors are both on the board at pick 6, and you have a chance to grab one of them.
Yeah, that's if the Giants go quarterback at 6, right? Like the Chargers sticking here and picking is not good for the Titans, in my opinion, because they're going to take one of those guys the Titans are looking at right now. They need a lot of wide receiver help, like Lucas mentioned. Lost Keenan Allen. They lost Mike Williams. Justin Herbert needs a guy to throw to. Okay, and then at the same time, they've got their left tackle in Rashawn Slater, but just 1 year left on that deal. They have a hole at right tackle they could fill, or they could, draft the left tackle of the future, plug Alt in at left guard, and kind of mix and match as they wait for Slater's contract to expire with,
Hey,
most talented offensive
sorry to cut you
lineman on the board.
off. The pick is in, boys. Here we go. With the 5th pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, the Los Angeles Chargers select Joe Alt, offensive tackle, Notre Dame.
Okay, that's
and you are bordering on chaos here.
That's one step closer. That's one step closer to your nightmare scenario for the Titans, where neither Alt or Neighbors are on the board when you're up at
Giants are getting ready to go wide receiver. So, hey, I'm interested, chat. I'm interested in this because everybody is tweeting, yes, wow, yes, 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 like kind of pumped up. Not the reaction I necessarily would have expected. The interesting vibes in the chat today.
Chat wants a wide receiver. Is that what's going on here?
Maybe, but I think you're at risk of potentially losing your receiver in Malik Neighbors. I don't know how the Titans have, Rome Odunze on their board, but that seems to be the consensus here.
This makes the Titans fans camp who are team wide receiver or team trade back very happy here with that Alt going off the board at 5, because those look like your only options unless they really like Latham. And again, Bill Callahan, who knows what he's thinking? Maybe he loves Latham. We've heard a lot of teams do love Latham, and he's gained a lot of steam over the last 48 hours on, from sports books across the country. He's now, nearly a lock to go top 10. We'll see what ends up happening. Obviously, there's a lot of movement that's probably going to happen tonight. But right now, if you're team wide receiver or team trade back, things are looking good.
JJ McCarthy told Rich Eisen that the team he has spent the most amount of time with in the pre-draft process are the New York Giants. If Rich Eisen's comment from post-combine about the Giants having buyer's remorse about Daniel Jones is on base, then very real possibility that they do go with J.J. McCarthy here. There is a need, though, as well at wide receiver. Daniel Jones still on that big contract they gave him a year ago. Almost exactly a year ago. So I will not be shocked whatsoever if the Giants do take J.J. McCarthy, and they're fielding phone calls right now from those 3 teams that we've talked about outside of the top 10 that desperately need a quarterback. But yeah, we're all in agreement here. Best case scenario is J.J. McCarthy or a trade up to get J.J. McCarthy and allowing the Titans to have an array of options at wideout or playmaker just in general. If Brock Bowers is front of mind for the Tennessee Titans, I feel like that's a name that's faded a little bit leading up to the pre-draft, throughout this process. So we'll see. But yeah, quarterback feels like best case scenario here for the Titans.
Quick note on J.J. McCarthy. Josh Gaddis, his OC at Michigan, came from Alabama where Brian Daboll was. So they run a very similar system. And that would help J.J. McCarthy kind of hit the ground running in New York with Daboll. Daboll, time's ticking on Daboll's job too. He hadn't done anything wrong. He just hadn't had a lot to work with roster-wise. But they need to figure this thing and figure it out fast. J.J. McCarthy with experience in that type of system makes a lot of sense. And Luke, as you said, spent a lot of time with the Giants ahead of this thing. So we'll see what direction they go in. But McCarthy, that's kind of where I'm leaning here for New York.
So let me pose this question to you. If the Giants take Malik Neighbors here, do you guys want, number one, an offensive tackle at 7, number 2, to look to trade back to somebody, or 3, just pull the trigger on Rome Odunze? If those are your 3 options here, what are you guys leaning towards if Malik Neighbors is the pick for New York?
Man,
Luke's gonna lead off here.
Yeah, tough spot. That was what Jack and myself and Austin all pegged as like the worst case scenario is no Alt, no Malik Neighbors, and maybe no trade back partner, and you are forced to pick at at 7.
Yeah. Well, look, the cop out obviously is what's their evaluation, right? If JC Latham has been their number 1 guy all along, then the answer is JC Latham. But for me personally, if Malik Neighbors is indeed the pick here and Joe Alt is already off the board, I'm in the trade back camp. I'm in the trade back to maybe 11, 12, 13 for one of those teams. Now, really, there's one quarterback left, I think, that's worth trading up for, and that's Michael Penix. I don't know that Bo Nix is in that conversation. And one quarterback, 3 teams that may be climbing on top of each other to do so. If you can get a first-round pick swap, a first for next year, and a third-rounder for 2024 out of it, I would be in the trade back camp. Maybe get a Fashanu in there to fix that left tackle spot, and then just have continuous capital down the road to add on at wide receiver, which there's a ton of depth in at this class. There is no position deeper than wide receiver in this class. You can address defense, whether that's in the 2nd or 3rd round, edge rush or linebacker, whatever it might be. But the flexibility that you can get by having a 3rd round pick, I think that's where I would go.
I have a pick. The Giants are not trading their pick. The pick is in. Here we go. With the 6th overall pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, the New York Giants select Malik Neighbors, wide receiver, LSU. There goes my guy. Dagger to the heart of all of the efforts I've been putting forth for the last few weeks. And now, man, let's see where the Tennessee Titans go at number 7.
Yeah. So nightmare scenario happened. Still not a nightmare, though, because you can still trade back. Like Lucas said, maybe you get Latham if he falls to 11, if you want to get out of there and let the Vikings hop in. Or maybe you trade back into the teens and grab Olu Fashanu and then take a receiver in the second round, maybe a linebacker up there too with the pick you gain. So just because those two players are off the board does not mean the Titans have lost, okay? There's still great players available. Latham and Adunze are the top two that come to mind here. But to me, Sam and Lucas, I'm saying let's move back. Let's move back. Let's get another second round pick, third round pick, and let's cook.
Well, the Titans are now on the clock at 7. So let's see if Ran is cooking. Let's see how his phone lines are going. Interesting. I've gotten the feeling pretty much the entire pre-draft process here that the Titans open at 7, but not necessarily looking to trade back, quite like some of these other teams at 5 or 6. I mean, sure, smoke screen, maybe get a little bit extra in the process. The worry that I've had pretty much this entire time is if you're one of those teams in that next quarterback tier, what is your motivation at this point to move up to 7? Atlanta's not taking a quarterback at 8. The Bears are not taking a quarterback at 9. The Jets are not taking a quarterback at 10. Like, who's got 11? It's Minnesota.
Yeah.
Like, if you're the Vikings right now, why would you move up to 7 if you could probably just sit there and get JJ McCarthy? Like, do we think the Bears are maybe the team that could trade out? They've got 4 picks in this entire draft. So they maybe trade out a 9 and somebody comes up to get the quarterback.
Well, you move up to 7 to beat the Broncos or Raiders to it, essentially, to be the team that does get J.J. McCarthy out of those 3. And we talked to Mike Keith, voice of the Titans, this week on the radio show, on the Buck Rising show on The Zone, and he told us he would be shocked if a trade back scenario for the Titans did not include a 2024 third rounder. Well, the Broncos have a third rounder. The Raiders have a third rounder. The Minnesota Vikings do not. So I don't know how that would impact things. Just something to keep an eye on. If it is indeed a trade back with the Titans, then I feel like I'd be surprised if the Vikings are the team involved, even though they might have the best situation to place a rookie quarterback into. And we know J.J. McCarthy had a ton of success at Michigan in a fantastic situation with the offensive line, the weapons around him, and an elite defense.
All right, I need both of you and the chat real quick. Chat needs to hit the like button to manifest good vibes and a positive result for the Titans. Chat. Smash that like button to manifest here. And then in the chat, comment this. Jack, you first, then you, Lucas. Call your shot. What are the Titans doing here? Is it a trade? Do they find a partner? Or who are they picking?
Jack, go ahead.
I think they're sticking and picking. I think JC Latham is the pick at 7. Titans fans might feel like it's a reach, but who's the question? Bill Callahan. That's my pick. I think JC Latham comes off the board to the Titans at 7.
I think I agree. Titans did not do a top 30 visit with Rome Odunze. They met extensively with Malik Neighbors, with Joe Alt. Those guys are off the board. If it's up to me, it's trade back, guys. It's get a third round pick. It's address offensive line. Latham could be available in that 11, 12, 13 range. But you know what, though? Kind of in real time, I'm working through it. And I think if they are going to stick and pick here, it's going to be for a playmaker. It's going to be for a blue chip playmaker, because just that real time logic to me is that JC Latham will likely be there just outside of the top 10.
I agree.
He'll be there outside of the, yeah.
And I my think personal evaluation too, like I agree with you, Lucas, because you have to have some level of conviction here to pull the trigger on an offensive lineman at 7 and not go back, right? If the margins are slim between an Olu Fashanu and a JC Latham, or one of those two guys in a Tali Fuaga, right? You have opportunities to recuperate draft capital that is really, really going to be important in day 2. I'm looking for anything to figure out if the Titans are about to pick right now.
Real quick.
Quick, Jack, will you go to the chat and see what the chat is saying and what they think the Titans are going to do?
I was hiding the chat because I know they're going to
spoil okay. Never mind then. Yeah, I forgot you were doing that.
Listen, let me ask you a question. Do you feel more comfortable going a receiver here in Adunze and finding a starting offensive tackle in the second round, or do you feel better about drafting, I guess an offensive tackle at 7 and then finding a receiver in the second round that can contribute? To me, I feel like you solve the offensive line problem first. You've got enough at wide receiver right now to where you can take a second rounder and let him work into the offense. I think offensive line first, wide receiver second is my path to victory.
I agree with that in principle, personally. But again, I fall back on, I think you can get that offensive lineman outside of the top 10 in a trade that gets you more draft capital. If they stick and pick here, Sam, I'm going with blue chip wide receiver. You're right, Jack. Like, there is so much wide receiver talent. The Xavier Worthies of the world, the Xavier Legets, just so many names that we can run through. But if you're sticking and picking at 7, to me, Brian Callahan and this coaching staff, it is for a blue chip playmaker on the outside.
I'm kind of contrary to what you guys would do logically. I think every argument I could have made for Malik Neighbors, you could make for Rome Odunze. I mean, we hear these wide receivers are 1A, 1B, 1C. And I potentially would be very okay with going and getting the playmaker in Rome Odunze here. I do think there are tackles that are going to be available in round 2 and in round 4 and 5. The comments from Rand Carthon about blue players that are day 1 starters. And we have, ladies and gentlemen, a pick in for the Tennessee Titans. With the 7th overall pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, the Tennessee Titans select JC Latham, offensive tackle, Alabama.
Solve a need, baby. You solved your need. You solved the biggest need you had coming into this thing. JC Latham, Bill Callahan getting his hands on him. I'm excited to see what happens.
Man,
how are we feeling? I mean, I will say my initial reaction, I'll let you go so I can get out some tweets here and get people into the show, but I think if you were a Titans fan coming into the draft going Joe Alt or a playmaker, you're probably feeling underwhelmed right now. And that's not to say JC Latham can't be a really good player and a really good fit for the Titans. But JC Latham at 7, like Lucas said, a guy who I thought was a candidate for them in a trade back, and them pulling the trigger on Latham at 7 is a bit surprising and potentially underwhelming if you were doing a mock draft and dreaming up scenarios for the Titans.
Yeah, and I'll say this, just because JC Latham is the pick doesn't mean that he is moving to that left side. Maybe that's the situation. Maybe Bill Callahan has said, I can make that guy a Pro Bowl left tackle, but it's not like the Titans don't have a need at right tackle, guys. I mean, are we all comfortable with Nicholas Petit-Frere holding down that right side of the offensive line? I mean, I don't know what the solution would be at left tackle. Maybe it's a value piece down the road and picking up an Andres Pete as that veteran stopgap that's still on the market. I'm not sure, but if any offensive line coach not named Bill Callahan was on this coaching staff, I'd feel real iffy about this pick. But again, maybe it's a cop-out. I am stepping back and saying, okay, if this is the pick, then that means Bill Callahan signed off on it. And who am I to sit here and say that I don't like it?
Yeah, I think it's the first question that needs to be asked at that press conference is, do you foresee JC Latham playing right or left tackle? And they did talk at their recent press conference previewing the draft about most guys in college football nowadays cross-train, like they have the ability to do both. But people can remind you, Joe Alt is a left tackle with a team that is playing a left tackle in Rashawn Slater. He might have to move to right, but he also used to be a tight end and moved to left tackle. And so, like, good athletes that have good footwork and good hands usually can make the transition. That, I think, is the $1 million question, though, because then you start to get into Peter Skoronski territory again, another guy who I like a lot. But if you came away back-to-back years with the 11th overall pick and 7th overall pick, you went left guard, right tackle, it feels like you're neglecting a pretty big hole here at the left side of this offensive line, and you're playing a dangerous game if you're banking on that guy being there at 38.
Sure, but don't just draft a left tackle to draft a left tackle. Right?
Absolutely.
Like, go get a dog. And JC Latham is a dog and has been a dog. He was the top offensive tackle when he came out of high school in 2021, 5-star player. I mean, he's got good lateral movement. He's a dog in the run game. If he gets his hands on you in pass protection, you're getting shoved into a locker. You better call your buddy over with a code because you're going straight into a locker if JC Latham has his hands on you. This guy is ready to play right now and make an impact.
Yeah, here's some stuff from our guy, James Foster, over at A to Z Sports Film Room. A full breakdown. JC Latham, he had as a mid-first round grade. Some of the strengths he highlights are his flexible hips, routine inside hand placement, really good grip strength, and patient, controlled, and refined in pass protection. Combines power and finesse at the second level. Impressive location skills in open space with strength and tenacity to finish. Latham is a guy who I know is just praised for being a really good run blocker, sheerly because of his size. He is really able to displace run blockers and create big holes. And so potentially something the Titans love there with Tajay Spears and Tony Pollard. The weakness is average fluidity and movement skills, limited experience taking deep vertical sets. Pocket range was rarely tested. 18 penalties over the last 2 seasons at Alabama. So there's a quick write-up for JC Latham. Arm length over 35 inches there. That'll do just fine. 342 pounds, a little bit over 6'5". So a mammoth human being for sure. Yeah. That is now in two-tone blue.
It's an iceberg out there. Okay. And pull James Foster's pros and cons up one more time. Yeah. I want y'all to look at the cons column here. Now, of these cons, which con is not able to be coached out of him, right? Limited experience in deep vertical sets. That's coachable. Occasionally leans down into blocks. Coachable. Limited experience blocking wide zone. Coachable. 18 penalties over the last 2 seasons. You can fix that. All of these cons are that's room to grow for JC Latham. I think that's encouraging that his only cons are fixable by coaching. And lo and behold, you have the best offensive line coach in the game in Bill Callahan to tweak his game and fine-tune it and develop him into an all-pro left tackle, right tackle, wherever the Titans line him up at in 2024.
Ladies and gentlemen, Lucas, I'll let you go real quick and rebuttal that. I just want to share a shocker. The first shocker of the draft just happened. The Atlanta Falcons are drafting Michael Penix Jr.
Wow.
So no Kirk Cousins is on their roster, and they are pulling the trigger on the Washington quarterback, Michael Penix Jr. That one's difficult to justify for me. I'm not sure I get it a ton, but wow, any team sitting at 11, Minnesota Vikings sitting there. I mean, the Falcons have now cut the Vikings out of 2 quarterbacks in the last month and a half. They were probably sitting there at 11 thinking, isn't it nice to get your guy? And
JJ McCarthy.
I guess JJ McCarthy is still there.
He's still on the board. Wow. Who had JJ McCarthy being on the board with Michael Penix going at the number 8 pick? I was thinking edge rusher for sure here for the Atlanta Falcons that have not had a competent edge rusher since who? Vic Beasley's lone big season for the Atlanta Falcons. So that is a shocker, Sam. You're absolutely right. And I mean, one of those 3 teams are licking their chops right now at the idea of getting J.J. McCarthy in there. And if the Vikings don't end up with him, then Kevin O'Connell will hate the Atlanta Falcons more than any other team in the National Football League because I believe he wanted to keep Kirk Cousins. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, I mean, to the point of JC Latham, again, you mentioned the first question that you want to hear is will he play left or right? And for me, the second question is how hard did you try to trade out of 7? Did you field calls trying to trade out of 7? I am very curious to know if the Titans tried to do that or, maybe they come out and they tell us it was JC Latham all along, right? When a school hires a new coach and was our number 1 choice all along. Maybe that's what we get from the Tennessee Titans brass in their presser after the first round today. But I'm still kind of reeling after that Michael Penix pick. I did not expect him to go 8 to the Falcons with McCarthy still on the board. Wow.
Yeah, no, I was actually going to bring that up earlier. I think that's a great point. Playing left or right, and then just how much did the Titans consider a trade back here? I'm also kind of curious to see where somebody like Olu Fashanu ends up going, where he ends up falling, and how this quarterback situation, now that we know Michael Penix Jr. is off the board in front of J.J. McCarthy, potentially impacted the level of interest that there was to move up and go and get him. Perhaps not the great calls that the Titans were wanting, and they just stuck and picked the top guy on their board. There's a real possibility of that. I guess we can pivot here before we get into the full chat reaction. Do the Titans, where do you go now at 38? Where do you look now at 38? Because Latham being a offensive tackle, very good, but he's also a right tackle by, trade that we know. Do you look to go double tackle? There's been rumors of defensive line. Lucas said off the top of the show, the depth at wide receiver is very attractive. I have kind of felt like for a while now, if you weren't going to go with the elite top tier wide receiver, it becomes less of a need the farther away you get from the high end talent. Like you're fine with Calvin Ridley and DeAndre Hopkins. The thing that was attractive about Malik Neighbors or Rome Odunze to me was the idea of having a guy for Will Levis in the future, with D-Hop having 1 year left of contract control, with both of those guys up over 30 years old, and finding a young dude to grow with your young quarterback, really attractive. If you're looking for a role player receiver, a guy who can fill a need in the slot or just do things that help your offense this year, I don't know if it's quite as urgent at 38 as you could probably get that guy in round 4 or round 5 and scout them and evaluate them that way. So where do you look now if you're the Titans at 38?
David Lee has a comment here on Facebook. Best player available at 38. You've got an entire 24 hours to trade down. I'd be surprised if the Titans traded out of 38, but, at the same time, if they could move back and acquire, a pick in the second round as well as the third round, maybe a late third round, maybe you do that. But to me, there's a couple players that I'm interested in, but mainly I think that the linebacker position is an interesting spot here because they brought in Junior Colson, linebacker out of Notre Dame, for a top 30 visit. I think that, there's clearly a need for a green dot right now. Junior Colson could fill that need. Like you mentioned, Sam, once you get past kind of the top 6 wide receivers that are going to go in the first round tonight, you're still going to be able to find a guy who can contribute later in this draft, maybe even early on day 3. So to me, I'm kind of looking at the linebacker spot if Colson falls to them at 38.
Yeah, unless there's a wide receiver that this entire staff is just in love with, like a Xavier Worthy, right? That I feel like is that fringe first, second round guy, deep threat, speedy, broke the 40 record at the combine. Thing is, anybody that's broken the 40 record at the combine has never fallen out of the first round, for better or for worse, right? Whether it's Chris Johnson to the Titans or John Ross to the Bengals, and we know how that went. So unless there is a prospect like that they're in love with, that boom is there at 38, I think I'm with you, Jack, of going defense there because that is the biggest need. And Junior Colson, local guy, I think he could come in. People talk about him like a guy that could come in and take command of the defense immediately right in the middle of it. That's a need for the Titans next to Kenneth Murray, who's not exactly that green dot caliber player. The Titans have basically said this. They want Kenneth Murray to play football without thinking, to play free, to go hunt. That means they need somebody in that spot, whether that's Jack Gibbons or ex-draft pick, I don't know. Chop Robinson could be on the board there as well. Darius Robinson. Yeah. There's a Chop and there's a Darius.
I really like Darius. If Darius Robinson is there at 38, and I don't necessarily anticipate him falling out of the first round, but if he is there, I think that's a great fit. It, kind of has that positional versatility on the defensive line. Some teams call him an edge rusher. Some teams call him a D tackle. He thinks he can do either one. And, reminds me a lot of Danico Autry for that very reason. His ability to kind of be whatever you need at all times. Really big dude, takes up a lot of space, covers gaps just kind of by standing there. And then, his ability to get after the passer, I think would complement Jeffrey Simmons very well. So yeah, the Titans made one move on the defensive line, adding Sebastian Joseph Day. I'm not sure I'm overwhelmed or satisfied with that addition. They want to get better in the trenches. They want to look good getting off the bus. JC Latham looks really good getting off the bus. Darius Robinson would too. Or allow me to just plug my guy because he's been a draft crush of mine from the beginning. Actually, 2 of them are both look good getting off the bus. But if you go double tackle, Patrick Paul out of Houston is somebody who has like 37-inch arms and is just a massive human being. And he could be your left tackle. JC Latham could be your right tackle. Maybe they're not so high on Nicholas Petit-Frere after all, and they want to get both their guys in the draft.
That would be something, and that would shut the chat up because there's a lot of people in the chat right now that are upset at Rand Carthon for going right tackle. We're presuming that JC Latham plays right tackle this season. But it's all about the second-round pick makes this first-round pick look a whole lot different. If they double up on tackles, then I bet you feel real good about Latham. The wide receiver dream isn't dead either, guys. Like There's going to be Troy Franklin, Leggett, like Lucas mentioned, maybe Ladd McConkey. There's going to be Ricky Pearsall. There's going to be a handful of talented wide receivers that are going to be up there at 38. I think the Titans are in a really good spot in the second round because they could fill 3 different positions of need with really talented players that are expected to be available. I mean, if you can get Patrick Paul and slot him in at left tackle across from JC Latham right next to Skoronski, that's going to be one hell of an offensive line.
Well, the Chicago Bears are going to take Rome Odunze, so they are grabbing that third wide receiver.
Caleb Williams.
Caleb Williams' position just got even better because now he has Cole Kmet and Gerald Everett at tight end, DeAndre Swift at running back, and he is throwing to Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, and Rome Odunze. I'm not sure a number 1 overall pick has ever walked into a better situation than Caleb Williams is with that Chicago Bears offense right now. That'll be interesting. And I think we're about to be in for a little bit of a treat in this 10 to 13 range, seeing what the heck happens with JJ McCarthy. And is he in for a Will Levis slide? Like, is that where we're at with JJ McCarthy right now, where he might drop back? Like, if somebody fires off a Bo Nix pick, I'm going to be, stunned. Like, this is all lip service from Jim Harbaugh over the last 3 months.
We're in our zone right now, aren't we?
I was going to say,
Jets?
yeah.
That's the mystery, right? Yeah, Chicago was kind of considered for Brock Bowers. They were removed. Felt a little early for any of those teams in the 5 to 8 range to go, but the Jets at 10 are popular. The Indianapolis Colts, I'm hoping for the Titans' sake that is not who ends up with Brock Bowers, because I think that would be a wildly good fit for them in their offense and probably score a lot of touchdowns against Tennessee.
I agree with you, Sam. I think the Colts is not the landing spot that you want for Brock Bowers. The way Shane Steichen utilized Dallas Goedert in Philadelphia and what he could do with a talent like Bowers is not a fun thought for Titans fans. I could easily see him going to the Jets here. Could also easily see them going offensive line guys. They bring in the likes of Tyron Smith, right? Veteran guys that are over 30 that you would be shocked if they played all 17 games this coming season. They may be high caliber offensive linemen, have had great careers, but likely are not going to be healthy the whole way. So there's a lot of really good players on the board. I mean, whether it's a Terrion Arnold, not like the Jets are going to go defense here. So when you look at the offensive line, go ahead.
It's not the Vikings on the clock. Or sorry, it's not the Jets on the clock. It's the Vikings. They're trading back 1 spot. This is actually something that we kind of saw last year. The Bears last year were at 9. They traded back 1 spot to 10. The Eagles came up and they got Jalen Carter at that spot. And then the Bears settled for Darnell Wright. So maybe a little bit of a bidding war for a couple of teams hungry for their quarterback. The Vikings are going to win that bidding war, and so they will pick at 10. You have to think this is a J.J. McCarthy spot for Minnesota.
Yeah, and probably a no-brainer for the Jets too, right? When they got that call from Minnesota, just had to move back 1 spot. We can still get the guy we were going to get anyway. Yeah, absolutely.
So easy there. I will go ahead here and unleash the Wolves, and I will ask a question. We're going to play a little game. We are going to assess this Titans draft pick, and we are going to do so using the heat levels of our friends over at Prince's Hot Chicken. So I'm going to ask you guys, what is your excitement level for the Titans drafting JC Latham at 7th overall? Now our levels, mild, medium, hot, or extra hot. What is your excitement level, mild, medium, hot, or extra hot for the Tennessee Titans drafting JC Latham at 7th overall? Again, those are the spice options that you can get at Prince's Hot Chicken. And if you're watching right now and you're a parent out there, Prince's Hot Chicken is bringing you a sizzling experience like no other with a chance to win tickets for for Frozen the Musical at T-Pack. Imagine this, a delicious breakfast fit for royalty, all set to the enchanting tunes of Disney's Frozen, the hit Broadway musical. Check out Prince's Tanger Outlets location this Saturday, the 27th, for a magical morning you won't forget, featuring special menu items like the Blizzard Blend scrambled eggs, sizzling snowflake bacon, turkey sausage snowballs, snowy pancakes, and blueberry blizzard muffins fit for any ice queen or snowman. So if you got a kid out there, you got a big Frozen fan in your house, bring them out to Prince's Hot Chicken, fun-filled activities, and the chance to win ticket giveaways. Get ready. It's this Saturday, April 27th, Tanger Outlets locations. Each prize comes with a Frozen gift pack and a $25 Prince's gift card. Make sure to grab your friends and family and head to Tanger for breakfast fit for a Disney prince or princess at Prince's Hot Chicken. And let's see what the people are saying. I'm looking for sauce levels Jack, you got something to say
real
here?
quick, because this is going to impact everyone's answer here. Rand Carthon just stepped up to the podium and said, JC Latham is expected to be the left tackle, the starting left tackle. So that's going to change a whole lot of answers here. And maybe that changes the feelings of a lot of Titans fans that were down on the JC Latham pick. So Rand Carthon says JC Latham is going to start out at left tackle. That changes things, doesn't it, boys?
In real time, is it okay if I go ahead and give mine my sauce?
Fire it off.
Because in real time, that just took me from a medium to a hot. Because I was medium, it probably would have been a little lower than medium if not for everything I've been saying about just deferring to Bill Callahan. Medium if JC Latham was to come in and play right tackle, which is absolutely still a need, but wondering how they're going to address the left tackle spot. But if JC Latham is the guy that Bill Callahan said, I can make him a good left tackle. And it's not like he's the only one of those on the board, right? Fuaga was still out there. Amarius Mims is a guy that the experts have been talking about as the right tackle that can kick out and play left, that has all the athletic traits. So if Bill Callahan is saying, yep, nope, it's JC Latham, that's the guy to flip out to the left side, then I've gone from a medium to a hot with this pick.
Well, let me add to it real quick because it's funny, Lucas, we came up with our first two questions that needed to be asked. Number one was left or right tackle. Number two, what was the trade interest? I think those were the first two questions asked at this press conference because we have the answer, left tackle for JC Latham, and Teron Davenport is now saying, Rand Carthon tells the media, they got a ton of calls to move out of 7. He said they looked at their board and felt unless it was an offer that would blow them away, they were staying put and taking Latham. So obviously some conviction behind this pick might spice up some of these answers. I know a lot of people like Assad and Adam and Pistol Ramsey and Brandon came in with mild. Isaac had said medium. We got a lot of mild answers. But Lucas is starting to heat up. Jack, where are you at? Are you heating up with Princess Hot Chicken right now?
Run me through the options one more time.
We got mild, medium, hot, and extra hot.
I'm hot. Oh, man, I wanted to go extra hot. Oh, I did. I really did. I almost did it. I'm hot right now. You've got your left tackle. That scratches an itch we had coming into this thing. JC Latham is built to win in the NFL. That size, along with his technique, I mean, his legs. He uses his legs to create a base that is really impenetrable. We'll see how he handles speed rushers on the outside, right? That was one of the cons that James Foster had. But I think that they can work with it. And Bill Callahan, for them to have so many calls coming in and them still sticking and picking Latham, that tells me that he was their guy all along. Like for them to have that conviction, like you mentioned, Sam, to turn down trade offers and take JC Latham because they didn't think they could do better than that, that tells me that they feel like they got their guy. That's why I'm at hot right now.
Sam, how big are the crowds around Bill Callahan going to be when the Titans do assistant coach media availability coming up at training camp this year?
I mean, every other assistant coach has hit the lottery by having Bill Callahan on the staff. There won't be questions.
Off the hook.
Yeah, there used to be guys like Bobby King, the inside linebackers coach, that would just kind of like try and hide behind PR and hope nobody asked him a question. Give it 30 seconds, look and go, hey, can I go? Can I go back? Everybody's going to be able to go back because, yeah, I'm heading straight for Bill Callahan. Everybody else is. Big coach, as Rand Carthon calls him, seems to be like, it's funny. We were rooting for Bill Callahan to be a hire as soon as Brian Callahan got hired. And it is wild to me how much of it feels like the culture having him around has impacted. You hear them talk O-line. Bill Callahan's name comes out of everybody's mouth all the time, praising him, talking about how great he was at teaching this and breaking down film and his attention to detail. The free agents that they signed are guys that Bill Callahan either gave the stamp of approval to, or guys that he worked with in the past, or guys that knew guys that Bill Callahan worked with in the past. And here you are in the draft, and it's all Bill Callahan all the time with them going for the offensive tackle. So he's might be a bigger star than his son, which is kind of like a wild thing to say, but I think he's at least the most interesting man in Nashville right now, if you're a fan of Titans football. Is that fair for me, like, to fire off that he might be a bigger star than the head coach? It might be blasphemy, but, you know.
I mean, he is tonight. He's not going to be during the regular season, I hope.
Yeah, well, during the regular season, as soon as there's a touchdown drive with a well-designed play that has Nick Westbrook-Akine running wide open. Everybody's going to be singing the Brian Callahan praises. So,
well, it's going to be fun to watch that in real time, to watch Bill Callahan just get his hands on JC Latham and watch that transition day to day in training camp. There's going to be some growing pains, right? Peter Skoronski was the pick at 11 last year, saw some good things from Peter. End of the year was tough, had never played a 17-game season before in his career. Same will go for JC Latham next year. There's going to be growing pains. And, it's going to be interesting. Everybody kept going back to the Bengals 2021 draft, Jamar Chase versus Penei Sewell, and using that and kind of applying it to the Titans here. But maybe the Titans already went and got their Jamar Chase, right, so to speak, with the Calvin Ridley signing, because Brian Callahan has said he wants to use Jamar Chase use Calvin Ridley a lot like to use Chase with the Bengals. That quick release, get the ball in his hands, get him into space. And so I think I'm with that, with the Titans addressing receiver further down the road, because every move they have made, guys, in this free agency period has been about winning now, right? Calvin Ridley is 29. L'Jarius Sneed's 28. DeAndre Hopkins is over 30. These guys are not going to be the top of their position in 3, 4, 5 years. Titans are making moves like a team that wants to win right now. So I understand now why they did not take wide receiver at 7. I know I said I thought they would go playmaker just because I thought that's where Brian Callahan would lean, but this does make sense to shore up the offensive line and utilize the weapons that you currently have and use some of that capital down the road in what is a very deep wide receiver class. And it's a big job for Bill Callahan in training camp.
It's been a vibe of the offseason for sure, is like it weirdly chips all in, kind of like a team that was 6-11 and had a ton of turnover and felt like coming into the offseason, how the heck are you going to solve all of these problems? And slowly but surely, it feels like the Titans just kind of chipping away, kind of knocking one out, trusting their evaluation. And they have some weak position groups, things like inside linebacker, where you're kind of gambling on Kenneth Murray playing his best football and Otis Reese or Jack Gibbons really stepping up at this point. But, you solved the secondary, which I think might have been the biggest disaster on the roster, maybe even more so than offensive line heading into this offseason. You've now added Lloyd Cushenberry and Peter Skoronski and JC Latham, 3 instant starters to that group. So, yeah, Lucas, they've given off the vibe from day one that they are not sitting here and twiddling their thumbs and saying, hey, we're going to make a push next year. They want to give the Texans hell for the AFC South right now. It's what I think makes this division as a whole really captivating, because I think all 4 teams have the same approach to it. You got very rarely do you have 4 teams that have young quarterbacks and legitimate prospects to potentially make the playoffs and all think they can win the division.
Yeah, the Texans started this whole arms race, if you will. They got aggressive last year and it paid off big time. The Titans have been very aggressive in the offseason. Hopefully it pays off, this upcoming season. And for the people, and there's so many people in here say, Jack, you're a homer. Jack, you're in a fog, Jack, says Steve Jones. I'm not in a fog, Steve. Listen to me. I think a lot of people are concerned because JC Latham didn't play left tackle in college. That's not a big deal. There's been a couple of right tackles in college that have made the switch and kind of gone back and forth in the NFL and have turned into all pros before their 25th birthday. Okay, ever heard of Tristan Wirfs? Penei Sewell, who just got paid? Both of those dudes have spent time on the left side of the offensive line in the NFL after playing right tackle in college. This is not an impossible transition. And when you're as athletic and as big and as strong as JC Latham is, the switch shouldn't be too difficult. And if Bill Callahan thinks he can make it, I believe in it. So it's not an end-all be-all because JC Latham didn't play left tackle in college.
Yeah. Somebody said, Sam, are you not telling us anymore? I'd kind of figured I'd end being the commissioner once the Titans were on the clock. I will update you. JJ McCarthy's off the board. We see that on our televisions right now. And the New York Jets are selecting Olu Fashanu with the 11th overall pick. So it is not Brock Bowers. Brock Bowers remains out there. They do go get their offensive lineman. And I think that Olu Fashanu thing is relevant to me because it helps me come at a spot on our meter here. So we said mild, medium, hot, and extra hot. Prince's hot chicken meter. I'm more towards medium than the two of you. And it really, to me, is the fact that you got your offensive lineman, and maybe he was their offensive tackle 1. Maybe he was their offensive tackle 2. Like Lucas said, they're not going to step to the podium and say, yeah, I really wish Joe Alt would have fell, but yeah, this guy's all right, I guess. Like, they're pumped about it. I'm sure they had some conviction. The reason they didn't trade out of 7 is because they like him. But as a Titans, fan, if you're putting that helmet on, you probably thought they could trade back for more. As I broke down this draft class, I thought they potentially could get JC Latham or an Olu Fashanu in these 11 to 14 range. And the Vikings were looking to trade up. Like, Fashanu was there at 11. You could have traded down to 11, gotten back into day 2, gotten Olu Fashanu. We'd be sitting here feeling much better about things with the Titans because you'd be picking twice tomorrow and have multiple chances to fill your needs. So, I like the player. I'm open-minded to it. I think he can bring some good things, but this is a medium to me. I have a hard time getting excited about this.
So is a lot of that to you because of the idea that they could have gotten something out of it in terms of a trade?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. And maybe their assessment was right. JC Latham wouldn't have been there had they moved back. I'm not sure the margins between these tackles is all that significant for me, where I would have necessarily preferred Latham over Fashanu enough to give up the potential capital. I think that gap, if they don't trade back from 38, that gap tomorrow is going to hurt.
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot of talent going off the board that I think you're going to look up and be like, oh, I wish we had a pick right smack dab in the middle of these right now where we could, add a Patrick Paul or Tavondre Sweat or inside linebacker like Junior Colson to our roster. But I don't know if you have that opportunity anymore. And that's where I go medium on this.
That's fair. And look, JC Latham wasn't one of the 4 guys, 4, maybe 5 if you include Fashanu. It's one of the guys that we've been talking about the last few months. So I think that's why people are a little down on him. I don't think he's an exciting pick by any means, but he fills a massive need. And these picks don't have to be exciting. Like Lawan was not exciting. He was a Pro Bowl left tackle. Okay, there's been uninspiring picks that have turned out to be big-time players in Tennessee, and I don't see a reason why JC Latham can't be the next guy. Everyone who's down on it, I don't understand the doom and gloom. We've literally never seen him play left tackle, so how do you believe that he can't do it? He's got all the tools, the pros and cons. I totally believe that he can, turn into this Pro Bowl caliber player under Bill Callahan's tutelage. Hell, if Bill Callahan made Jedrick Willis look competent, there's no telling what he's going to do with JC Latham. So I feel really good about this.
Jedrick Wills is like a pretty good left tackle. Let's not take anything away from Jedrick Wills there. I get to some super chats here, and the last super chat actually is something that I'm interested in passing over to Lucas and Jack as 2 SEC guys. I'm not an SEC guy, not quite as experienced. Julius put a $2 super chat, said he called it. Just Smash said he called it as well, and Zach Bingham owes him a hat. Our Zach Bingham had said there is no shot JC Latham goes in the top 10. He is not only a top 10 pick, he is a Tennessee Titans top 10 pick. So Just Smash is getting an A to Z Sports hat. Merch is on sale. Go and buy that right now. And then Danny Sutherland says maybe a topic for another show, but this will be the final first selection from an Alabama class in the Nick Saban era. Wonder how this stacks up to years past. I like the pick. So, I'm not too well versed on Alabama football any more than the casual SEC and college football viewer is, where I understand that they're pretty damn good and they tend to put out a lot of NFL players. Where does JC Latham stack up to you and some of the offensive linemen specifically that we've seen come out of Alabama in the past? Or, does this do anything for you that this is the last Nick Saban guy?
I have a hard time, assigning former Alabama offensive linemen and using that to apply, whether it's Jedrick Wills or Jonah Williams or Chance Warmack, right? Whatever those guys did in the NFL, Alex Leatherwood, right? Whether they were a success, whether they were a bust, and applying that to JC Latham, that feels tough. What I will say, though, is JC Latham was starting every single game as a sophomore. And look, he was a blue chip player coming out of IMG Academy, was a 5-star prospect, was a huge get in recruiting. But he sat his freshman year, as is typical for Alabama. Important positions like that, or really any position for that matter, it's very rare to see Alabama start true freshmen. Will Anderson, right, is one of the very few exceptions. JC Latham slotted right in there and basically started every game for Alabama from his sophomore year through this past season. 13 games in 2022 and 14 games in 2023. His sophomore and junior seasons, second team All-American, first team All-SEC this past year in 2023. So, look, it's going to be interesting, but I'm not going to go back to Alabama offensive linemen that have come out in the first round in the past and apply. It'd be like applying Isaiah Wilson to Amarius Mims, right? It's just not fair to connect those dots, but I do look at the fact that he started not on day one. That doesn't really happen in Nick Saban's program, but on day two, so to speak, in year two under Nick Saban, Jack.
Yeah, it is tough because every player is different, right? And it's not necessarily fair just because Alabama's an offensive line factory for the NFL. It doesn't feel right to compare him to the rest of the guys that came before him. Look, he's his own player. He's his own set of skills. And Bill it's really, we talk about this for quarterbacks, man. Like, how important is a landing spot for a quarterback? Could you have asked for a better landing spot as an offensive tackle in this draft than with Bill Callahan in Tennessee? I don't think you could.
Open positions to play day one and, somewhat limited expectations because of the history at the position. Like, he's going to be better than his two predecessors, that's for sure.
There's no pressure like there was on Treylon Burks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Real quick, we can throw it over to an O-line guru. We do have some little bit of film breakdown. Here's Mike Martz on JC Latham with the 33rd team.
And this kid here ended up being my favorite watching him. I didn't know who he was really, and I'd watched him play a little bit. I didn't pay a lot of attention to him. 6'6", and I think he played at 360 maybe, but he's 342. I think he ran a 4.85 in the combine, if I'm not mistaken. 35, biggest reach. When he hits you guys, as a pass protection in the running game, he pretty much stay hit. I really think this kid's got a great future. He plays on the right side, easily seen playing over on the left side. A couple of those plays didn't transfer in the running game that were kind of fun to watch. Here he's over on the right side, just like his stance right away. He wants to set out all the time. He does not anchor on the left leg, which he needs to do, but that's strength. And I don't know who this kid is on defense, probably not much of a challenge, I don't know, but just watching the knee bend, the toes out, the base, the feet never come together, locks him out and just shuts it down. Just, that's it, buddy, you're done. If I had him, I'd work him on speed guys as much as possible because that's where he gets a little nervous. The big guys, he'll just maul them. I'm excited to watch this kid, where he goes and how he progresses. I think he's pretty special.
So a couple of interesting things there. I have to laugh at Martz just pulling it. I don't know who this kid is on defense. Probably not much.
A Georgia defensive, probably a 5-star.
Yeah. But interesting, right? He says he easily sees him playing on the left side, talks constantly about his power, his ability to displace blockers, even at times not anchoring really well off of his left side, but just strength. Going against that big Georgia defender and handling him, and wants him to work against speed guys. That's where he gets a little skittish, I think was the word that Martz used there. Well, he'll have a chance to do that in training camp. Titans have a couple of those. Arden Key and Harold Landry, I think, are speed guys for sure. Harold Landry specifically will be getting a lot of one-on-one FaceTime with JC Latham. Well, I guess if we're moving him over to the left side, it's a lot of Arden Key FaceTime. But either way, he'll be getting his work in Titans training camp. Interested in seeing how that swings some of the picks. Look, the offensive line guru likes him, says it was his most fun watch of any offensive line tape. And I think that's probably what the Titans saw as well.
And speaking of offensive line gurus, Diana Rossini tweeted out after the pick that JC Latham was Bill Callahan's favorite offensive lineman in this entire draft. So I don't know, man. Like when you hear something like that, it's like, am I going to look Bill Callahan in the eye if I were ever to come face to face with him and say, yeah, I don't like the pick? When we talked about him as the offensive line guru, it was the biggest hire Brian Callahan made. And if it's his favorite player in the draft, like, I don't know who I am to say that I don't like the pick, right? Like, I know it's a cop out. I get it. Maybe that's the homer thing to do, but I just have a really hard time. I would feel very conflicted about saying, no, I disagree with Bill Callahan on his favorite offensive lineman in the draft. I think he's wrong.
It's not a buzz name. Titans fans were looking for a buzz name, a big splash, and maybe that was a playmaker at Malik Neighbors, but Joe Alt also, the offensive lineman that's been talked about most leading up to this draft. Titans fans hadn't heard a whole lot of JC Latham on, whether it's the radio stations, whether it's on TV, whether it's on draft shows. Yeah. So that's going to throw a wet blanket on the pick. You don't like the name, so you assume the player is bad. Don't do that here, man. JC Latham is a great player, and I truly believe that Bill Callahan's going to turn him into something special at left tackle. Just because it's not a name that pops doesn't mean it's not a good pick.
Well, I think it is the downside now. As by the way, I just thought I'd let everybody know Bo Nix went number 12. Mm-hmm. So 6 quarterbacks in the first 12 picks to Denver. So they just traded for Zach Wilson. They took Bo Nix. So my prediction on your podcast, Jack, that 6 quarterbacks would all go in the first round cashed before we hit the halfway
12
point.
picks, 6 quarterbacks.
Yeah.
There's still been a defensive player, has there?
No, that is a wild, I guess, very telling situation. But I do think that is the downside of this draft culture that we've created. And it's great. There's so much of this is great. The fact that we can sit here, have these conversations, do these shows, the fact that we've been able to do shows like this one for the last month, talking about scenario A, B, C, all the way through Z, is awesome. The fact that there's mock draft simulators out there that allow fans to engage and play GM at home is awesome. And the downside of it is just that. If you don't hear a name being mock drafted in the top 10 and your team takes him in the top 10, you're going to be disappointed. You're going to say, what? That was not the name that I heard. Every Titans analyst said JC Latham. And those that said Joe Alt, and those that said JC Latham said they would do so in a trade back, like I did in my most recent mock draft. Not to brag, humble brag, but I had JC Latham going to the Titans. But anyways, I think it does like kind of warp our perception of like the reality, and sometimes fail to see some nuances or understand the fact that, hey, a team's board almost always is not going to mirror that of a consensus big board or Daniel Jeremiah's mock draft.
In the chat here, Elo says, Lucas, I bet you never watched an Alabama game. Hush, fam. I grew up in Birmingham, so I was privy to far too much Alabama football. Believe me, caused me a lot of nightmares over the years as a Tennessee fan. Hello, Lady says, none of these guys talking about Latham leading up to now. And I will say, like you mentioned, it was Joe Alt all the way, right? Joe Alt's off the board at 5 to the Chargers. Going back to what you said, Sam, about, maybe you could have traded back, and hindsight's 2020, sure. But you look at it, the Titans picked Latham at 7, and an offensive tackle doesn't go until 11 with the Jets, and it's Olu Fashanu. So in hindsight, you don't know who the Titans were taking calls from, but stands to reason the Vikings would have been one of those. Clearly, they wanted to move up for a quarterback. So if there was a scenario there where you could have gone back to 11 to take JC Latham, then you risk the Jets maybe loving JC Latham and taking him at 10.
Good
Clearly
point.
Looking for an offensive tackle. So obviously we're looking at this stuff in hindsight, having the results in hand. The Titans didn't have that. And if JC Latham was number 1, and that comes out from Diana Rossini, maybe Joe Alt was number 1 for the Titans all along, but it's very easy for them to say that. But we can sit here and say JC Latham was at the very least, the number 2 offensive tackle for the Titans in this draft and for Bill Callahan.
Well, and good news for the Titans. Good news for the Titans. Brock Bowers just went to the Las Vegas Raiders. So he's not an Indianapolis Colt. And interesting from an organization that just took Michael Mayer last year with a second-round pick?
Yeah, that is. And a lot of people had a first-round grade on Mayer out of Notre Dame. So that is good news for the Titans, though.
Yeah.
Guys, another thing we haven't talked about is this is Rand Carthon's second draft. And we're kind of figuring out how these things work with them, right? Like this entire offseason, the Tennessee Titans organization has been nothing but transparent. I mean, they've given you all kinds of answers. We hadn't seen this, since Vrabel's tenure, and really even Malarkey as well. So they've been so transparent. You heard Brian Callahan say, if it's a tie, we want the guy that can get into the end zone. We want the guy that can find the paint. Roma Dunze was there. He's the guy that can find the paint. The Titans might be a smokescreen team now. Okay? I mean, because there was a guy there that Callahan,
I do think we need to qualify that. We need to qualify that comment that Brian Callahan made when he said he prefers guys that score touchdowns. He said, when all is even, he prefers the guy, right? And that is the big thing here, as Lucas said. If the report is that this was Bill Callahan's top wide receiver on the board, if the Titans fell in love with the Marvin Harrison Jr., and maybe they fell in love with the Malik Neighbors, but they didn't have the same passion for Rome Odunze, maybe everything wasn't even in this case. And so they took who they felt was the best player at the position of need. This was also that comment at the combine before Calvin Ridley had signed. A lot has changed since those words came out of Brian Callahan's mouth.
And that was a very unique situation, right? Like Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow was already on the Bengals. That's his teammate. Jamar Chase was the wide receiver of that draft class. Penei Sewell was the offense. It was a very unique situation in 2021 that I think a lot of people very blindly just applied to the Titans at 7 in this draft. Sorry, Jack, didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I was just going to say, JC Latham to the Titans hadn't been talked about really anywhere a whole lot because the Titans kept this thing under wraps. Like, even though they've been transparent all offseason there was no leak that got out up until, maybe 24 hours, 48 hours ago that, man, the Titans really like JC Latham. If he's there at 7, watch out. They kept this thing under wraps. That's not easy to do. And if this is how Rand Carthon's going to approach the draft, that's fine. It's going to frustrate the media members, but that's cool with me as long as they get their guy.
Sure thing. All right. Well, I do want to toss it over to the chat one time. We've kind of reviewed a lot of different angles about this. We've seen how the board has played out here and apparently the Saints are looking at trading back. So we'll see what happens there. We've seen how this board has played out. We've looked at what Mike Martz had to say about JC Latham. We've looked at the pros and cons from our guy, James Foster, and we've heard some stuff from Rand Carthon about him playing left tackle and not right tackle. So the question to the chat now, it's our classic after the draft. Go ahead, give him a grade. Hit him with a grade. Grade the pick. Jack, I will have you not share your grade for this pick because you are going to come out with a grade on A2ZSports.com right after we hop off this stream and write about your grade. So,
That's what they call a tease in the biz.
Yeah, a little bit of a tease there, but Lucas is going to grade it. I'm going to grade it. And now that the dust has settled, Billy Jones is at a B. Corey's at a C. Kenneth is at a B. F for Rand, says William. B. Bad news, William. Rand starts with an R, not an F. Brad says B. A from Albert. B plus. F. A plus. Oh, the duality of man between ND and G. Couple guys with letter names given opposite letters on the scale. C. I wanted Rome. B plus. B. B minus. B. D minus. C. A minus. C minus. B. C. D. D. Not great.
All over the board over here. Goodness.
Yeah, we did get a little bit of a run of some positive from, let's see, Travion came at a B+, Quello came at an A-, a B from Paulie. Lucas, I think you'll be a little bit higher than the chat here, so go throw a grade on this pick for me.
I'm going to say B-. And the B, the positive is, again, I keep deferring to Bill Callahan. If that's who Bill Callahan wants, that's who Bill Callahan gets. I don't care who the player is. I don't care what the fans think about it. That's been my blanket opinion on this from day one. I didn't know who that person was going to be. Turns out it's JC Latham. The reason it kind of gets knocked down for me is whoever you were going to pick to come in and play left tackle likely is your day one starter. So if JC Latham is indeed the day one starter at left tackle, that means that will be his first career game, college or pro, and to my knowledge, high school, then it's not going to be the smoothest transition, right? There are going to be growing pains there, no matter how good of a player or a prospect JC Latham is. And obviously that runs a risk, right? That runs a risk of injury to Will Levis, and that can impact the rest of your offense. And I don't know if the Titans are going to sign a veteran here and bring him in, and maybe he starts in week 1 and Latham is able to kick out. I guess that is one benefit of this, right? If the Titans bring in a left tackle, there's not many in free agency. They had Andres Pete in for a visit. Nobody has signed him. He's still out there, 31 years old, former Pro Bowler with the Saints. For example, if that was a move to come in and he's the day one starter, then you've got a guy that's pretty damn good at playing right tackle in JC Latham, that even if you want him to be the long-term solution on the left, you always have a guy that has that versatility built in to play on the right.
Your internal competition is mostly at right tackle as well. I mean, Dylan Radin's had some success out there last year. I think that's where Nicholas Petit-Frere's future is. Jalen Duncan was a bit overmatched at left tackle. So Jalen Duncan maybe is a guy who can get in the mix at the right side as well. I think all of your internal competition right now is on the right side of the offensive line, and you have some stability on the left side. You've got Cushenberry, Skoronski, Latham going in, out on the left side. That's a really good situation. So look for them to maybe add a veteran right tackle too. But we hear versatility all the time as kind of a buzzword that the Titans and NFL organizations as a whole like to use. There's a reason for that, because injuries happen, you need depth, and you need guys that can move around. And so Latham is a guy who probably is their day one left tackle, but who knows where he needs to play as the Titans kind of unwind the 2024 season.
Yeah, so that's where my minus comes in. That you're right. I think we can say likely he's the day one left tackle, and as good of a prospect and as a player as Latham might be, we're not going to sit here and say he's a plug and play day one starter at left tackle the way we were talking about Joe Alt. Down the road, he could be the solution for years to come with the Titans at left tackle, but in the meantime, There's going to be growing pains there. And that's what knocks it down for me is those early season struggles in his rookie year that we might have to see.
I won't give away my full grade, but I think that, this is at least a B. Like the floor of this pick is a B- because they filled the biggest need on the roster. Whether you like Latham over Fashanu or not, they filled the biggest need on their roster, and for me, that means the pick is at least a B-. Now, based on Latham's talent, skills, where he fits in, how Bill Callahan can help him, his grade's going to go up. But the floor for this pick is a B- in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think it's a combination of what you said, right? They filled their biggest need, and then number two is they don't have a track record as this regime of missing on, like, it's a different situation if this is John Robinson taking a big talented project at left tackle or right tackle that he thinks can come in and be super impactful. And you look in the mirror and you say, well, John, you failed with Dylan Radin, failed with Isaiah Wilson, and you haven't hit on these guys that you've taken. Or John Robinson looking at a cornerback that's athletic but has had all these injury problems and trying to get the best value. And you say, well, John, it didn't work the other times that you did it. Like, the Titans have kind of a fresh start in my eyes, and I think they should in the eyes of Titans fans as well. This is a new regime doing things very differently, evaluating players differently, not just in their style of play, but in the way that they scout, analyze, and evaluate draft prospects. So I agree with you. I think it's a floor of a B-. I hate to copy Lucas, but I have to go B- because I was medium heat towards this in my excitement level. I would have rather they go in a different direction, but I'm certainly not going to complain about JC Latham and a starting left tackle in the draft.
And while we're talking tackle, guys, the Saints have drafted offensive tackle Tali Fuaga with the number 14 pick. So the Colts officially are on the clock at 15.
The run on tackles has started. Scary Harry with a troubling comment here. I really want to go hard on this, but I'm going to keep it tame. I'm starting to lose interest in this team. Scary Harry, why in the hell are you starting to lose interest on this team? This is the second biggest spender in free agency in the NFL. They've gone out and gotten multiple Pro Bowlers to come fix some of the Titans' biggest needs. They drafted a left tackle. Now, he didn't play left tackle in college, but they fixed that left tackle need with the first pick in the draft. You're starting to lose interest now? Look, hey, if you want to quit on them now, don't jump on them when they're making the playoffs. That's all I'm saying, Scary.
Well, O-line isn't sexy. It's never going to get people all fired up to go watch their team. But let's remember what happened this offseason. Let's remember that L'Jarius Sneed was traded for and given a massive extension. Let's remember that they went out and got Calvin Ridley. Let's remember the fact that Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears are going to be a really fun and dynamic running back duo of a 1A, 1B combination. Let's remember that they addressed another huge need on the offensive line at center and are putting their young quarterback in a position to be protected and have weapons and trying to do things brand new. And we don't know what this scheme is going to look like. We don't know what this offense is going to look like. I think objectively, the Titans in 2024, as a fan, you should be more excited to watch this team than you have either of the last two seasons, I think, because
for sure
you could have been excited going into 2022, and the AJ Brown trade probably tanked all of your excitement for that and hurt your heart in a lot of different ways. Last year, you're always excited for football, but I think expectations were a little bit, tempered there. This year, I am so interested in, one, do the Titans win and how does the team look? But then two, what's the style of play? What's the culture like surrounding their new head coach? How does Will Levis look in year two? There are a million reasons to buy in now and buy stock now on the Tennessee Titans. And you can do that at BetMGM if you want to get in on the AFC South odds, because they're still probably outrageous. Let's be honest, like plus 800 to win the division.
For what it's worth, JC Latham did play left tackle at IMG Academy, coming out of high school as a 5-star. So just doing some digging on his profile on the Alabama team site. He did play left tackle at IMG, which obviously produces blue chip guys year in and year out down in Florida.
Number one offensive tackle in that high school class, playing left tackle, by the way. If you're Will Levis, guys, one last question. If you're Will Levis, how are you feeling right now?
Safe. Which is a pretty good way to feel if you're a quarterback right now.
Safer.
Yeah. I think the Titans as a whole, there is it's good time to be a Titan. A lot of excitement in that building and a lot of excitement for Will Levis. You hope that you get your answers about him this year. I think that is the ultimate goal of the Titans season. Yes, as Lucas said, they are kind of doing a push to compete now and to win now. But I think a big part of that is to figure out what Will Levis is with a competent defense and a competent offensive line and a couple of veteran wide receivers that can make plays for him. And, maybe you come out of the year and you're 9-8, but maybe your young quarterback looks really good. And you understand that, hey, we're in a spot now to be those Houston Texans and to throw some money around. And to let it hang a little bit and say, yeah, come get us. We're at the top of the division. Come get us. And you're not there right now. Got to get those answers on the quarterback.
You've got a 4th place schedule too. So maybe they're looking to take advantage of that weak schedule this season by making all these aggressive moves, trying to win now.
Sure. I do have a little bit of shade to like the NFL world in general, because as Bork points out, only one trade so far. And I saw tweets before the draft that were saying, hey, get ready for the chaos. This stuff, everybody's looking to trade down and trade up, and there's bedlam. And it's kind of been a chalky drive. Michael Penix was a wild card, and outside of that, it's been a little bit predictable.
Well, and someone pointed out in the chat, I just lost it. Not one defensive player so far. We're at pick 15 here. Now, I imagine
that cannot have happened ever before.
Yeah, no way. That's got to be a record. And we talked about this being potentially a record player, offensive players in the draft. I think the record is 18, 19 in that range. I mean, we're going to smash it here, right? Just going to obliterate the record of offensive linemen taken in the first round of the draft. Not to get away from the Titans, but I am thinking about that Bo Nix pick to the Denver Broncos and Sean Payton having that franchise pay millions and millions and millions of dollars for Russell Wilson not to play for them and offering up Zach Wilson and Bo Nix as the solution. It's going to be an interesting couple of years in Denver.
Sure is. It sure is. How about this, man? A playoff caliber team is likely to get the best defensive player in this draft.
He just went to those Indianapolis Colts. Laiatu Latu is the pick to Indy as the first defensive player. So it's not Jared Verse. It's not Dallas Turner. It's not Byron Murphy. It's not even Quinyon Mitchell or one of the cornerbacks. Laiatu Latu, who probably the best true pass rusher in the draft. The health is the lingering thing with him, and the Colts taking a gamble. So this is a big swing from Chris Ballard.
Okay, so what happens here? Do we see a run on defensive players here now that it's taken this long to get to this point, or do we continue to see the top talent on defense get pushed into the early part of the second round, right where the Titans will be picking at 38? And could the Titans have a plethora of options to fill needs up front with that front seven? These next few picks are going to be really interesting in that regard with Seattle and Jacksonville coming up after Indy.
I feel like they're both going to go defense, because at one, Jacksonville, it feels like that's the biggest need, and Seattle, I think, always goes defense. Seahawks are just going to take defense. They'll take some D linemen here. And I mean,
Mike McDonald in there, young Pete Carroll, the head coach.
There's no way
an all-pro or a total bust.
Yeah, there's no way the Seattle Seahawks thought they were coming into this draft and coming out with Dallas Turner or somebody like that. So they're definitely Mike
He's McDonald eating Doritos in the green room right now. I just saw him.
Okay. Well, Mike McDonald is doing something, giggling to himself at the idea that he's got just about every defensive player to choose from. All right, that's all we got for the draft show. I feel like we've kind of used all of our resources here, hit all the different angles, kind of reacted to this. I know it's not the hot pick on the Prince's Hot Chicken scale that maybe a lot of fans would have wanted, but Jack's a little hot. Lucas is a little hot. They're feeling good about a starting left tackle. So some love to our sponsors before we head out today. Again, that is Prince's Hot Chicken, Nashville's original hot chicken, bursting with heat and flavor. Nothing better than the original. 3 locations: South Nashville, 5th and Broadway, Tanger Outlets. Oh, and a bonus one in the airport. And Holiday World and Splashin' Safari. Family fun just a couple hours away from Nashville, with top-ranking coasters, brand new rides, and the nation's first launched water coaster. Get the summer started with the best savings online at holidayworld.com, where there's always free parking, free soft drinks, and free sunscreen. We will be back at it tomorrow, right? This does not stop on day one. Back live tomorrow, because there is a pick to be made at 38. There might be multiple picks to be made if the Titans trade out. So keep an eye on that here at A to Z Sports, and then keep it glued on A2ZSports.com as Jack and I come out with written content, as well as our guy Buck Rising over on the website. Till next time, till tomorrow, tighten up, hang in there. It's going to get better. We'll see you later.